Hi, everybody. Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Modern Oracle. It is me, your host, Erin Carrera, and I'm just going to refresh my YouTube page. I'll tell you why in a sec. But if you're watching and or listening, no, just watching live, it's Tuesday, August 25th, 8 a.m. Pacific. Happy birthday to Gracie Ray, one of my besties. Love that kid. It's just because she's younger than me. I'm therefore her elder. It's so good to be with you today. It is the fourth Tuesday of the month. I'm back in Los Angeles. Maybe you can tell by my backdrop, back at home. And today, well, the fourth Tuesday of every month on the Modern Oracle, we are talking about myth, magic, transformation. And today we're going to be talking about staying the course and burnout, but we'll see where this goes because this has been a very intense time for me personally. And this has been a very intense time for a lot of the people who call me over on One2Listen. So if you don't know, this show is brought to you by one2listen.com/Erin. That's Erin with an E, E-R-I-N. And we are in this moment this week. If we talk about symbolically, astrologically, for example, moving from Leo into Virgo, for example, talking about the eclipse coming up this week, where we are going to be having the sun in Virgo, the moon in Pisces. So much energy around, okay, but what do we let go of and what do we keep hanging on to? What do we keep working on? How do I keep working on? And I just think it's such an important topic because this is a question on both a simple level and a profound level. Everybody will have to confront at some point, right? Which is, we can set intentions, we can plant seeds. I have my little basil plant I'm trying to keep alive. I go away for 2.5 weeks and the plant is in need of some help. We can buy the plant and get it set up, but what do we do when we start to encounter the long run on these things we're manifesting? So yes, it's wonderful to set an intention, to create the vision board, to create the symbol that helps you see what it is you want manifest. It's wonderful to ask the universe for what you want. What happens when you've done all of that and what you are manifesting is taking forever? And we touched on this a little bit last week, right? If you saw the show last week. But how do you know when to stay the course? How, when it's been a long time, do you stay the course? What if the course is really, really hard? Is there a time to let go? Is there a time not to let go? Because sometimes letting go is all you can do. What is the difference between quitting, spiritual surrender, and choosing just to back off, taking a pause? So what happens when you are out of work and you've been looking for a job and now it has been 18 months and you're still not getting hired for the job in your career field? What happens when you've been looking for love and romance for years? What happens when you've been building a business, pursuing a dream, an artistic dream in particular, or an athletic dream in particular? You're trying to write that book. You're trying to get that book published. You're trying to get your podcast more listeners. You're trying to really grow your business. And you're still out there and you're still doing it. And it's exhausting. How do you stay the course when you're tired? That's what we're talking about today. And I think the deeper question is because it starts to beg. I think the deeper issue is that it starts to beg the question. How do you know when staying the course is the right thing to do? And how do you know when it is no longer spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, financially, physically the right thing to do? How do you know? And then how do you do what needs to be done next? What is the next indicated step? So that's what we're talking about today. If you want to leave comments, I'll check in on the chat room here. Oh, there's a shadow. If you want to leave comments over on YouTube in the comment section, that's where you can leave comments for me, and I will check in every few minutes to see if you guys are there. Let's see. So today, sorry, you know, I always write out my whole outline on my iPad and I lost my place. Let's start by talking about this lunar eclipse coming up. So this lunar eclipse coming up is in Pisces, and these are very, very useful moments for us to examine these exact kinds of questions, because Virgo is going to say, okay, Pisces is going to say, you know, what do we need to surrender ourselves to? What are our dreams? What are the illusions around the dreams? And sometimes those illusions are really important. I mean, I am of the firm opinion that humans need imagination, dreams, illusion. I don't think illusion is always bad. There is a point at which it is bad, right? Like all things. Just for example, we could talk about psychedelic drugs. I don't do drugs, but there are ways that, for example, mushrooms have changed the course of humanity time and time again. But if you were only always doing psychedelic drugs, that could create psychosis, mental illness, unhealth. But there are ways that a certain amount of that can be useful, can be a wonderful spiritual, psychological, emotional, artistic opening. Parameters, right? That's where Virgo comes in. Show me the proof. Show me what do we do with this? What do we do? Okay, you've got these dreams, but what are we going to do? What's the plan? What's the data around that plan? What's the data around other people who have had a similar dream? And therefore, how can we apply that and create a nice schedule for ourselves? That is, believe it or not, actually a wonderful combination, because it can be very hard to stick it out. You know, I was just in Minnesota visiting my family. My parents have been married 54 years. This was their 54th year. If they both lived to next year, 55 years of marriage. And in terms of being together, because they got together when they were 17 and 19, then if they both lived to see another year, 60 years. They will have spent 60 years in relationship. That is persistence. That is definitely not throwing in the towel when it gets hard. Now, there are times when I am sure they had to surrender, spiritually surrender. That's what we're going to talk about. That's what we're exploring today. Virgo always wants improvement. You know, what needs work? What can I improve? What isn't working? What can I fix? And Pisces is going to look at the other side of the equation and say, well, what if this isn't mine to control? What if I've actually done everything I can do? What if there's something else happening here, something larger? What if I have to trust? What if I have to surrender? And I think somewhere between those two voices, that's everything it means to be human and everything it means to be alive. Not even human, everything it means just to be alive. Life requires both. This is so elementary, right? It requires both effort and surrender. But boy, is that hard to apply when you're in the middle of it, when it's your thing, when it's your life, it's your deal. You know, you cannot control the ocean, but you can learn to sail on it. You can learn to surf. I learned how to surf. I'm going to give us a quick little commercial break because, or not commercial, but fun break, because this is a deep topic. But I'm going to tell you all the story of how I learned how to surf. I don't think Carlo is watching. He might be watching from the gym. I met a guy. I met a very, very, very cute boy. He was younger than me, 7 years younger than me. A very cute man. He wasn't a boy. He was a young man. And he was visiting, and he loved surfing. And he was like, you know, would you like to go surfing? By the way, he was from the UK, so he had, of course, this darling accent. In case you haven't noticed, I guess I have a thing for accents. I married an Italian. dated this, had an intrigue with this person from the UK. And he was like, would you fancy going surfing with me? And I said, well, I've never gone surfing. And he said, well, I'll teach you. And I thought, oh gosh, okay. But then I thought, you know what? Yeah, let's go for it. And he was a wonderful, first of all, we went to Malibu to rent surfboards, and they said, the surf is too high. We told them up front he was going to be teaching me, and they said it's too high for a beginner. But he was like a long time surfer, spent a lot of his life in Australia surfing. He was half Australian, half British. And he said, I would like to surf though. I am totally capable. I would like to surf. So the surf shop rented us the one board. And then when we left, he said, of course you're going to go surfing. And I said, of course I am. And so then we went down to the beach, and he was such an amazing instructor because we practiced on the sand first, going from lying down to jumping up onto the board in the right position to get my center of gravity to understand the movement. So we did that maybe, 30 times, where I did this jump from lying down to jumping up on the board, lying down, jump up on the board, lying down, jump up on the board. And then he said, all right, let's go out there and do it. And I thought, okay. So I got on the board and I started swimming out, and I am a little bit overwhelmed by the ocean. The waves are indeed very high. The Pacific Ocean is not the warmest ocean, at least not in Malibu. So it was a little cold. I was wearing just this little string bikini, and I swam out. And then he said, do you want me to come out with you? And I was like, no. And he's like, okay, I'll tell you. I couldn't hear him. At a certain point, I couldn't hear him anymore. Just the roar of the waves. But I started swimming, and then I was lying on the board, and then one wave came and crashed over me, and I kind of came in. And then he was like, okay, next time, about the time you see the wave, the curve, he explained how to watch for the curve of the wave. That's when you jump up, right when you see this part of the curve of the wave. I mean, it's a long time ago. Long time ago. We're talking like 15 years ago. And I said, okay. So I went out again, and I was lying, and then the wave came, and I just thought, let's go. And I just jumped up on the board, and I caught the wave. And then I was surfing. And I surfed for a while all the way in, and he was like out on the beach, like so proud of me. And it was exhilarating. And then I looked down and I realized my whole bikini top was up. I did not care. Didn't care. Because it was this amazing feeling. I pulled it down. Oh, wouldn't it be nice if I had had the proper swimwear to not have to be self-conscious in any way? I mean, I was self-conscious because I had a crush on this guy, and he was like, that was amazing. You want to do it again? I said, I do. I went out, and every time I went out and jumped up, I caught the wave. Now, A, he had been an amazing teacher beforehand. B, we were into each other. We were attracted to each other. So energetically, I wanted to look good. Energetically, he wanted me to have a wonderful time. So our collective will was certainly happening that day. Thirdly, I had done yoga since I was 13 years old. I have done yoga since I was 13 years old. So I'm a woman with very strong legs. What I'm saying is I am kind of built for surfing. My body makes sense surfing because I have very strong lower body. I've got, these gymnast legs. I've got a lower center of gravity. I studied belly dancing. I did yoga for years. So I had a little bit of a combination of training and genetics on my side. And then I was having fun. And if I hadn't gotten up on the board, that would have been okay too. If I had just been slammed by the ocean, it would have been okay. And I'll tell you why. Because I still would have been having the experience. It just would have been the experience I was having. Certainly there have been other times in my life I've been out in the ocean and I have gotten slammed by the ocean. And that can be overwhelming, especially when it's a big, big wave. And I'm not advocating that we run out into the ocean when the waves are too high. It might have been a little irresponsible for us, but I never ever once really felt fear. I was just pure-hearted, going for the experience, letting this guy guide me because he knew more than me. And I had chosen to trust him. I didn't trust him because I wanted to trust him. I trusted him because he was extremely close friends with my brother-in-law. And if my brother-in-law loved this guy, then I knew there was something there. But I also had an intuition about him. So why do I tell you this story? A, because it's fun for me to talk about a cute guy who took me surfing. B, number two, I don't know, wherever I'm at. Because that required both effort and surrender. I had to learn what to do, like a proper little Virgo lesson. I had to learn what to do. I had to be willing to listen to him to learn. And I mean, I had never gone surfing before, but I had to at least understand enough to do it. And I had had years of yoga, like I said. We had to go through a bit to even make it happen. We had to drive all the way to Malibu, which if you've ever lived in the Los Angeles area and you happen to live, at the time I was living in Van Nuys, so that's a bit of a jaunt. And then you would drive out to Malibu, and we had to convince them to rent us at least the one surfboard. And then he had to teach me. And then I had to actually go out into the ocean and swim out there and jump up at the right time. And then I had to surrender. I had to let my body take over. Because if you think about it, you might topple. I remember being on the board and being like, oh, it's so easy. And then I thought about it and I felt like I might wobble and I just went right back into my body. That was years of embodiment and yoga training that gave me the ability to do that. If I hadn't had all that training, it might not have gone so well. But you surrender. You just ride the wave. What a joy it was. If I had not done yoga for many years, would I have done as well surfing? We'll never know. My suspicion is the answer is no. That is my suspicion. So you have to row the boat, but you cannot control the ocean. You have to learn how to surf. You cannot control the wave. Okay. Manifesting. Even just life. I know a lot of people right now are going through very difficult life things. How do we stay the course through very difficult life things? How long do we stay? So we collectively, spiritual community, those of us who love manifesting, there are ways that we've made this sound incredibly simple. The way I described surfing just now, I made it sound so easy, and it wasn't. It wasn't easy. It's easy once you've learned how, you've learned technique, right? But it's not always easy. So we've made manifestation sound so easy, like, well, just get clear on what you want, believe it's possible, raise your vibration, take inspired action, and receive. And, sometimes that's absolutely true. My little surfing story, get clear on what I want. I wasn't even thinking I want to learn to surf, or I want this guy to teach me to surf, or I want to surf well to impress this guy. Just my natural attraction to this man and wanting to share something he loved with him made me go, okay, yeah, let's do it. Believe it's possible. No part of me ever allowed myself to even think, what if I don't get up? Because I didn't really know what I was in for. Honestly, I did not know. I had not thought about surfing before. If I had thought about, like, if he was taking me out to learn how to drive manual transmission, something I'm embarrassed about, I never learned how to drive stick shift. I had a boyfriend once try to teach me, and every time he was trying to teach me how to get it from this into that, the car kept dying, and he kept yelling at me, thinking it was something I was doing wrong, until finally he got on the driver's seat, and there was something wrong with the engine. But he had yelled at me so much that it soured me, and I was like, oh, I'll never learn how to drive stick shift with you. you're going to have to drive this car for the rest of our life together. Well, we broke up shortly thereafter, so joke's on both of us. But then I just never got the chance. I just never had the opportunity to learn how to drive manual transmission. So if this person really wanted to teach me how to drive manual transmission, that might have been different, because I would have had all these thoughts and experiences, and I don't want to say trauma, but like, angry remembrances around it. But surfing was, sure. I mean, I had seen Lilo and Stitch. I had watched uh, Annette Funicello and Frankie Avalon, Back to the Beach, this movie from what, the 80s, I suppose. I mean, I knew what it was. I'd lived in Malibu, or not lived, I'd lived in Southern California and been to Malibu many times, but I had never thought about it deeply. So, of course, I believed it was possible. Now, my vibration was raised because I was in that feeling of, could this be a potential love match? That can be very high vibration. Take inspired action? Well, I did. We drove to Malibu. We convinced the guy at the surf shop that only he was going to be surfing. We decided together to have a little subterfuge. He taught me how to surf, and I just let him. I just kept doing it. And then once I had done it enough with a good form, I just went out and I started paddling out. And that second time, I just jumped up and then I rode the wave and then I was able to surf. I just was. I received the joy of being able to surf. And I received the joy of making my date proud and enjoying his pleasure. And he went out and surfed a few times. And then it was getting late. We had to go. So sometimes it really does fall into place. Sometimes things fall into place with such synchronicity that you just think that, I mean, there's no way I orchestrated all of that because I had never even thought about surfing before. But that can also happen sometimes with things we're manifesting in life, just in general. But there's something else. There's another kind of experience that we just don't talk about as much. And that is when manifestation takes a really, really, really long time. Have you ever known someone who's tried really hard to get pregnant and just couldn't? Just took a long time. Or they've been building a business or looking for a job for a long time. It feels like forever. If you know any actors, building an acting career can take ages. Even people who seem to be overnight successes usually have been at it for a long time. Steve Carell got The Office. He booked the lead role in The Office after he'd been in Hollywood, I think 22 or 24 years. Now, everyone doesn't take 24 years. I've heard that when I moved here, I heard the average time it takes to build a career as an actor is 10 years, but I think that has grown now to 15. Yes, of course, a child actor might get lucky and then they might sustain that child actor career into a long-term career, but there are very few Claire Danes, Jodie Fosters, right? Very few. More people are going to be a child actor and then quit and go do something else, or be a child actor and then come back and have a comeback, or be a child actor and never hit and never hit and never hit and then hit in their 20s, or, right? There's so many different ways people do it. Morgan Freeman was in his 50s. Estelle Getty was 62 when she got Golden Girls. And she had been doing community theater for decades before that, when she got the opportunity to do Torch Song Trilogy off Broadway with Harvey Fierstein. Not to be confused with Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Fierstein is that one who's got that wonderful gravelly voice. And so she played his mother in his off-Broadway version, so that when he went to Broadway, he made sure to bring her with him. And then because she was on Broadway, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, she got the Tony for that. She was at least nominated, I believe. We have to look that up. Somebody look it up and let me know. And then that's when she was offered to play Sophia on The Golden Girls. And she became beloved, iconic, because picture it, there I was, Sicily, 1913. We all love it. People still watch that show. Because I watched it recently, rewatched a lot of episodes recently. It did not grow old on me. So, manifestation that takes a really, really long time. And not even manifesting, just building things that take a long time. That is the kind of building and life and creation that requires patience and time. It can get boring. And what do you do if you don't get a sign every Tuesday like this saying you are on the right path? That requires so much faith. Not the faith that comes easily like my surfing story. Faith, long-term faith. And where does faith come from? And faith in what? And faith in who? And why? And where's the evidence? And do we listen to our intuition like a Pisces? Do we follow the signs and look for the evidence like a Virgo? Do we find somewhere in the middle? Right? I mean, anybody can believe anything when things are moving and shaking. We can believe in love when the really, really hot guy wants to take us surfing. Then when he leaves and he's got to go back to the UK and then you don't hear from him for a while, you go, wait, was that real? Was that Memorex? Was that real, or was that just a moment in time that I mistook for something else? Not the surfing, the rest of the story. What was really happening there? Timing. That's a different story for another time. His timing was off, my timing was off. So, maybe you have sent out hundreds of resumes, you've networked, you changed your resume, you sent them out again, you've taken classes, you've asked friends, you hired the coach, you apply for jobs below your experience and education level, and nothing. So at what point do we keep telling somebody, just keep believing? You know, that's the job experience example. Same thing with relationships. Someone's been single for years, they've worked on themselves, they've gone on the apps, they've deleted the apps, they've gone out in person, they've hired a matchmaker, maybe even. And people say things like, well, it'll happen when you stop looking. And sometimes that might be true. But that's one of those things people also say because they know that that has worked for some people. Sometimes it's true, right? How many people you know have been trying to get pregnant, and it's the minute they quit trying so hard, they get pregnant. Does that mean all that trying they did before wasn't meaningful? No. Do you remember when you learned the quadratic equation in algebra? Now, maybe you were a math whiz and you just got it right away, but most people have to work at it. And they work at it and they work at it and they're not getting it and they're not getting it. And then one day it just seems to click. Now, does it just click? Did they just get it overnight and all of that work they did before was meaningless? No. The brain was working on training itself and creating the pathways and understanding the concepts and understanding how it worked. And one day, all of those synapses fired and connected. Like speaking a language. You might be learning Italian. That's the language the other language I speak fluently. A couple other languages, but not fluently like Italian. And by fluently, I mean at a USA Today level, right? Am I at a New York Times level? Not quite. I can understand, can't speak back, right? Someday I will. But one day when I was first learning Italian, I was in Italy and I thought I was good at Italian. And I went into the drugstore and the lady went, and I said, mi dispiace, di nuovo per favore. Mi dispiace, non ho capito. Un po' lentamente, per favore. Vuoi comprare, blah, 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 right? She was asking me if I wanted to sign up for like a, at a Super Saver account or whatever at this pharmacy or drugstore, similar to a CVS. And I said, oh, no, grazie. But now there's 7 people behind me in line. And I was just like, mi dispiace. I'm sorry. Because I was just like, you're going too fast. You're speaking in a Roman dialect. I thought I was good at Italian. Mm-mm. So I just kept practicing. I didn't give up. I just kept working at it. I started watching TV shows at regular speed to listen and understand. So the next time I can go into that drugstore, now often when I go into those situations, because when people know I'm from America, but I speak Italian, they speak clearly, they speak very sharply, they make sure that I'm being understood. They speak like this. Hello, Erin. It's lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for coming in. What would you like done with your hair today? Right? Like how we might speak to somebody for whom English is a little iffy. You want to know how to get to Disneyland? You're going to go this road, big road, busy street, La Cienega. Go all the way to a highway, 405, right? That's how you're going to talk to me. You're not trying to be rude. You're just trying to make sure they understand. Now I can go to Italy and it clicks better. Does it click better because all of a sudden I got it? No, because I'm working at it. Friends, sometimes what we're manifesting is like that. I know. You don't want to hear that. I know. But what I really want to talk about, okay, I already talked about Pisces and Virgo, right? Pay attention, make the list versus listen, dream. We need to do both. Sometimes we imagine when we are in these moments, I've been working on this thing forever and it's not happening. Someone's been sick for a long time and they're not getting better. I've been building a business for years and I'm plateauing. I've been trying to get my body into shape in a certain way for a long time and I'm at a plateau. We imagine so often, especially when it comes to something we're manifesting like a relationship, that there's only two possibilities. Number one is keep going and number two is quit. You see this a lot with, for example, artists. Well, maybe it's time for me to get real and quit. Keep going, quit. Keep going, quit. There are many, many, many opportunities. And we're going to talk about how to select one of these other actions if you don't know whether to quit or stay. Sometimes we don't know. We just don't know. So we just keep going or we just quit and then we have regrets or not. So you can persist. Persist. You can pivot. You can pivot to a new career, to a new way of going about things. Pivot can entail many, many things under the category pivot. You can, number 3, pause. You don't have to quit totally. You could just pause. You can complete. Number 4, you can complete. You can say, you know what? I am complete on this. And number 5, you can release. Release may or may not be quitting. You can just say, I release. I release. We'll just see what happens. I'm just going to do whatever's next, the next indicated step, but without pushing. So, you may not need to quit the dream. You might need to quit the way you have been pushing the dream. And that is very different. You might still want love, but maybe you don't do the apps anymore, or maybe you start the apps. You're still building the business, and I can just hear so many people say, yeah, but Erin, but I tried this, I tried that, I tried everything. Have you? If you have tried everything and nothing is working, what is something you haven't tried? Have you tried surrendering? Have you tried resting, pausing, releasing, taking a vacation? If you've tried everything else, have you really tried everything? Have you? Everything. It's important that you know this. The Virgo needs to know so the Pisces can understand. So I want to talk a little bit about the magic of completion. And this will bring us back later to staying the course or not. We love beginnings, right? Most people love beginnings. We talk a lot about setting intentions, the new moon, the new year, new intentions, initiations, new projects, new relationships. If you've been in a long-term relationship, you're like, yeah, man, new relationships sound great, right? New chapters. We just love it. We love it. And beginnings are fun. The beginning of a relationship, that limerence period, that's intoxicating. Completing things has a very different energy. It does. It is asking something harder of us. It says, can you stay with something after that initial excitement disappears? Now, I know there are some people among us who actually prefer that. I mean, my parents, they're almost 60 years in the game with each other, right? Completion asks us to tolerate the middle. Some people might enjoy the middle. I think I might. I'm not sure. It would be weird if I say that because it doesn't seem to necessarily match my personality, but a little bit. If we were to speak astrologically, it kind of does, because my 3 major personality components, I've got a Pisces Sun, Aries Moon, Scorpio rising. So it might make sense that I'm really good at sustaining with that Scorpio rising, even though Uranus is directly on my ascendant. So I'm probably going to sustain in an unusual way, right? Find unusual reasons to sustain. Sticking with things asks, can you, the story of completing things, to get to the completion of things, asks, can you finish when you're tired of looking at something? Can you stop perfecting something once it's actually complete? Can you find a moment to be done? Writers know what I'm talking about on that one. Because sometimes completion really, really signifies that the nature of the work has changed because the nature of the worker has changed, right? Who is the person who was able to complete that dream, to receive that dream, to have that dream? And this is particularly true of things like building a business, having children, getting into a relationship, writing a book. You wrote the book, wonderful. Well, now what? Are you going to self-publish? Are you going to look for a publisher? Are you going to put it in a drawer and not think about it? You're just happy you wrote it. You're just going to share it with friends. There's so many different ways you can go about things. If you decide you want to get it published, that's a whole other journey. So whatever this is, you want to build a product line. You love makeup. You're creating a makeup line. Okay, great. You finished making the product. You've designed the product. You've got the product. But now you got to find the customers. You got to build the website, build the business, get your product into stores or online. I mean, we all know these things. This is when it gets difficult. But here's the thing. You actually have an opportunity when you are at these thresholds I would love it if you think about moments where you've completed something. I completed an album. Yes, then there was the journey of getting the album out there, getting it onto radio, getting songs played on the radio, touring, selling it, seeing if I could make something out of it, use it to launch more for myself. But also there was the beauty of the album itself. I want you to think about something you've completed that took a lot. And I want you to see the way that you have transformed, what transformed in you, and honor that transformation and celebrate that completion, because that will help you the next time you need to sustain. Those lessons, that transformation is what can help you sustain or not sustain, quit if need be, when you are in the long-term manifestation of something else. Right? We can honor the completion without pretending the journey is over, because it ain't over till it's over, as we all know. And while there is not necessarily a perfect formula for knowing whether, okay, do I stay the course? Do I pivot? Do I surrender? Do I complete? Do I quit? Do I keep going exactly the way I've been going? I do think there are wonderful questions we can ask ourselves to find out where we truly are emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, financially, physically, if this is still good for us, if this is still growing us, if this is still what we want. And sometimes we don't have a choice. If you have a child who has a medical condition and you have to stay the course, there's no choice. I mean, there are choices, but those choices probably don't signify the kind of person that you are or want to be. Right? So the first question we ask ourselves when it's something we are manifesting long-term, building long-term, and we're exhausted, and trust me, I've been there. I have so been there. First, does this desire itself, the desire itself, does this desire still feel alive? I remember when I met my husband, I had been dating and looking for love for so long, but I had also kind of been looking for drama for a lot of that. So looking in earnest for love. Yeah, I was also looking in earnest for love. I was just looking for both. And when I met him, I decided, you know what, I'm done. I'm not going to pursue things. I'm going to stay open. If I meet somebody and I like them and I'm attracted to them and they are attracted to me and they ask me out, great. And if we have a nice time and they ask me out again, great. And I gave up. I let go of my list. I decided I didn't care how old they were or were not, as long as it was legal, of course. But in general, I always liked much older people. I just decided, like, I didn't care. Like, if I was attracted to them is all I cared about. I wasn't going to, for a long time, I forced myself on dates with people I wasn't necessarily attracted to, just to see if there was something there. And I thought, no, only if I'm attracted to somebody. But also, I'm tired. I'm not going to let myself get hung up on somebody. That's where I was at when I met my husband. 14 years later, here we are. So does the desire itself still feel alive? Because my desire for love and dating and fun and interacting in a romantic way was definitely still alive. The way I was doing it, no. And this is different than, would I feel embarrassed if I quit? Would I feel bad about all the money and time I've invested? I've already put, 15 years into this. What will people think? No, who cares about any of that? Even if you do care about all of that, let go of that for the purpose of understanding if this is still right for you. Does the desire itself still feel alive? Because we don't have guarantee. You might be writing a book that never gets published. You might try to get pregnant and never have your own child. You might never get married. You might, right, not be able to save whatever you're trying to save. You might and you might not. I know that is not what we want to hear. But if the desire is no longer alive, you know what? I really actually don't want to be in a relationship because my experience with relationships has been such and such. I actually am happier alone. For some people, that's true. For some people, they don't want to get into another relationship until they've done the work on themselves in which they no longer do A, B, and C. That's different. Because here's the question. If nobody knew and there was no judgment around what you were manifesting, would you still want it? Do you still want it? That is the question. Because that brings us to question number 2, which is there still movement? Movement does not necessarily mean success. Movement might mean you're learning, you're changing, you're growing, you're trying new tactics, you're getting better, you're encountering new people, the strategy is evolving, you're gaining information, you've got new tools, right? Doors may or may not be opening, but there's movement. You're becoming more capable. Here's an example of what that might look like. If you're looking for a new job and you're sending out 1 million resumes and you're not even getting a bite. So maybe you work with a corporate business coach, or maybe you do a YouTube tutorial and you just start working on your resume and changing it and looking at what you might need to bring to the table differently in today's job market. And you send out a new round of resumes and a new round of applications and you get a bite. Even before you get the bite, you having the awareness and taking the action, that is movement. Okay, the third question. Is the cost sustainable? And I don't just mean financial cost. I mean, We can really romanticize sacrifice. And some dreams ask a lot of us. The dream of being a parent is going to ask for, I would say everything, but right? Some dreams ask for a lot. But some dreams, the cost is not sustainable. If you are in a relationship where the cost to your personhood is not sustainable, this matters. This distinction matters. If pursuing something means the destruction of everything else in your life, the destruction of your financial security, the destruction of your health, your integrity, at least be willing to question the cost. Okay? Fourth question. I asked this already and I'm going to ask again. Have you actually tried everything? I'm not saying everything all at once. Have you? If you're writing a book and you're trying to get it published, have you tried rewriting it? I know you've rewritten it 12 times, but what if it's the 13th time? Let's never forget Garth Brooks. He was about to give up and then he said, no, one more year, one more round, and he made it. Now he's Garth Brooks. He's been Garth Brooks for how many decades? Have you tried everything? Sometimes people say I've tried everything, and what they mean is I've tried the same fundamental strategy that makes me feel like I'm trying 50 times. I know. But before you abandon something that you really don't want to abandon, just ask yourself, what haven't I tried yet because it would require me to be different? What haven't I tried yet because it would require me to change in a way that I may or may not like, I may or may not be comfortable, but at least maybe that's the doorway. Maybe I can become different this way, grow this way, because we don't always know how a dream will transform us. If I had known what I know now about doing psychic work, being an actor, a filmmaker, a writer, being a middle-aged person, a woman, being in a long-term anything, would I have started out? I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't have believed myself. I'm just saying sometimes things get really hard. Now, I'm a kind of risk-taking, crazy individual. I probably would have gone for it anyway. I said, nah, you're full of poo. But it's been hard. It's not been easy. And that's true of all life. Everyone's life. Everyone's life has its challenges. Everyone's. Might be relative, but everyone's. So, when do you let go? This is the other important question. I know I'm running out of time. Only got a few minutes left. But I want to talk I really want to give a little attention to when is it time to actually release something? If the desire itself is gone, and the only thing keeping you in this long-term manifestation is history or habit, maybe you're no longer pursuing the dream. You might be pursuing the person you once were and the person you thought you would become when you first had that dream. That deserves consideration. I'm thinking, for example, of people who wanted to get into a relationship because what they thought a relationship was and what a relationship actually is are different. And if they're pursuing what they thought a relationship was, but that was unrealistic, it's going to be painful to keep pursuing an unrealistic fantasy version of a relationship. You might someday find the unicorn. You might. I think that's a topic for next month because a lot of us have an idea about what relationships are that I really think are very far from the mark. But we'll talk about that next month. Maybe the thing that you've been pursuing, that you're holding on to, like we said, it's unsustainable. Maybe it requires you to betray yourself. Maybe Maybe you're attached to proving that you were right rather than this is actually right for you. These are hard questions, but if you find that in fact I am pursuing this because I needed to be right, or it's based on who I used to be 20 years ago, give yourself the freedom to experiment with letting it go. See what happens. Maybe something really just feels complete. I saw a YouTube video with a guy who used to be a TV writer. He was a screenwriter, TV writer, maybe a director too, and now he's working construction. And he said he just hit a point in his career where it wasn't really happening for him anymore, and he just could no longer bring himself to want to gear up to start all over, because every time he'd have to start all over with a new project. For decades he loved doing it, and then there came a time where it started to just feel heavy, and then there came a time where he just couldn't do it anymore. So he started working for his brother-in-law's construction company, and now he's very happy. He's utilizing all of the skills he learned as being a producer and showrunner on TV sets. He's physically active. He's still creating and building things. He's engaged in a family business. He's producing for his family. He's happy. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. It's really wonderful, because letting go, sometimes it is not losing. It's just saying, I'm done. It doesn't have to mean anything bad about you. I was stupid to want it. I shouldn't have wanted it. It was never going to, I wasted all that time. It doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't have to. It can mean that something was really right for you for one chapter of your life that isn't right for you now. Whether or not you succeeded at the level you think you were supposed to have succeeded at, what you did is you grew and you tried and you were living this way, and now you just want to live a different way. It's not failure. That's actually transformation. That fear of the investment, the sunk cost, versus our actual sacred investment, this is a distinction that's very important. I know I'm running out of time, but I just want to say there's this concept in economics called the sunk cost fallacy, okay? I've already spent this much. I've given it this much time. I've sacrificed this much. So I therefore must keep going. Some people call this throwing good money after bad. Or is it bad money after good? I don't know. Either way. Obviously, I'm not in economics. We'll have to ask my niece. She's in economics. The past investment cannot tell you whether the next investment is true. So the spiritual application to this idea is, if I were encountering this opportunity for the first time today, knowing everything I know now, would I still choose it? And that is the powerful question, because if the answer is yes, great. Stay, try a new tactic, try something different. If the answer is no, I would not choose this now, knowing what I know now, then perhaps you're not actually protecting the future. You're not protecting the now. You're protecting the past. And the past is done, honey. It doesn't need your protection. It doesn't. All right. There's so much more I want to say about this. If you liked this episode, come find me on one2listen.com, Erin, and let me know. Or on Instagram, one2Erin, or on Erin C on TikTok. Eventually, I'll be making some more relationship videos. Remember, you have many options. Just check in with yourself. And I will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.